to Friend Crash. I'm your host, Amber Akilla. This is my podcast where I talk about stuff and things, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Amber Akilla, Spotify, SoundCloud for music and playlists, and I'm going to hopefully start posting on YouTube more. The meme account for this podcast is at friend.crush on Instagram, so make sure to follow for updates and send any questions and feedback for the podcast that you might have to at friend.crush. And yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. Today's topic is friends with benefits. My thoughts on friends with benefits. I'm literally like lying on the couch. I can't decide if I'm alive or dead today because I went to bed at like 5 a.m. or like 5:30 a.m. I got home. Maybe I got home at 5. I went to bed at 5:30. And now it's the afternoon on a Saturday. Last night I played a party that was celebrating the release of Beyonce's new album in collaboration with the Beyonce fan group, Chinese Beyonce fan group, and the person that runs the group happened to go to art school with one of my really good friends in Hong Kong, which is so crazy. And then also with voguing Shanghai. So they decided together to throw this party for Beyonce's album launch and then reach out to me to play it, and it was really fun. Long night. I think we started at like 6 p.m. Had dinner and drinks, went to the venue. I was at the venue for so long because like I started DJing and then the police came, so then people had to leave, but then we kept the party going. I left the venue at like, I want to say like 3-ish, went to a bar where my friends were at, and it was kind of like someone's lounge room almost. They were playing like minimal house, or like I don't know what kind of house music this was, and it had like rugs and stuff everywhere. It really reminded me of that scene in Zoolander where they like take acid and have an orgy, minus the orgy part. But yeah, I'm literally so surprised that I was out till so late. Like I haven't been out that late in a very long time. So I spent the morning recovering. I also just got my period and I have the craziest cramps. I've also been like so emotional the last few days, and I don't know why, like every month I'm surprised that I am like emotionally unhinged for up to a week before I actually get my period. But yeah, it's been a very stressful week, very long night. Saturday, my day of rest. I just thought, let's record some episodes. So that's my little life update. At the time of recording, not sure how long it will be until this episode comes out, but please excuse any background noise. Let's consider it like part of the vibe. I'm lying on the couch using my laptop, using my stomach as my desk. My laptop is resting on my stomach, and then the microphone is like resting on my chest. And I have a glass of warm water next to me. So yeah, friends with benefits. Let's get into it. So obviously, like, this is just me, my perspective, my observations. I'm not trying to define anything for the culture, for the generation, but just sharing my thoughts and, you know, seeing how other people feel or respond to it. And for me, okay, for the purposes of this episode, we need to define friends with benefits and how it differs from like dating or a relationship, and also how it differs from a booty call, because I think sometimes all of these things are kind of like wrapped up together. And I think if you really want to understand like what kind of dynamic you're in, or what you might want or what you might be seeking at a certain period in your life, it's important to know the difference so you don't get all like muddled up. And there's no, like, you're not a bad person for not knowing how to define these things like as you're figuring it out. But I think this is just where I stand on the topic of friends with benefits, based off like my experience and observations. So for the purposes of this episode, friends with benefits is to me defined as like you're already friends, you have an established friendship, and then you start hooking up, but you don't like go on dates. And this is why I think like friends with benefits gets kind of messy sometimes, because it's like how do you maintain your friendship and hook up, but then the time that you spend together as friends not be like a date of some sort? You know what I mean? I think that's difficult. And then dating is when you are exclusively or non-exclusively spending time in a romantic context with someone on a regular or semi-regular basis. And to me, like a healthy romantic relationship also requires like a healthy friendship. And whether that is something that existed before you started dating or something that you build while you're dating, because maybe you didn't know each other, you start dating and then you build a friendship and a romance at the same time, I don't think it matters. But I think that to me personally, like a healthy relationship, you need to be friends. You need to have this friendship foundation. If you can't treat each other with the respect that you would a friend, then how can you then have a healthy romantic relationship? You know what I mean? So then this is differed from a booty call, which is someone that you hook up with on a regular or semi-regular basis, but you don't have a friendship with, and you don't necessarily develop a friendship with while you're hooking up. Or like, you know, maybe you go from a booty call to friends, but you can't like be a booty call and friends, because then you're kind of like friends with benefits. You know what I mean? So the nature of your relationship with one person can go through many different stages, many different definitions, many different versions. But I think it just helps to like have an idea of how dynamics can exist and whether or not like that's something that you want, or maybe it's something that you want to avoid, just so that you can, you know, have your needs met at any given point in life and know where your boundaries are. So then I also think in terms of understanding friendship as well, that's important too, because I think for me, as I've gotten older, I've been able to differentiate between like someone who I'm truly friends with, who I feel like I can reach out to and talk to and spend time with, and I would consider like part of my quote unquote inner circle, or like within the, not necessarily like the inner circle, but maybe like the inner circle. Because it's also just like, you know, different times in your life, there are people that you will always care about, but you aren't necessarily like talking to all the time, but you would still consider like a quote unquote close friend. So that to me is like a friend. And then you have kind of like outside of those friends, people that you could say are friends or like you're friendly with, but in reality you're more just like acquaintances. You know what I mean? Like it was really difficult for me to distinguish between these two things when I was in my early 20s, because I didn't feel that closely connected to the people that I spent the most time with. And I think after going through a lot of major shifts in my own personal development, and then as a result my friendships as well, I met people that I connected with on a deeper level that I also spent time with and could consider close friends. And then it was easier for me to be like, okay, that's a party friend. I still love and respect them and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just like, you know, we're not that close, and that's okay. And I think like for me, as someone who is like generally dating men more, I don't have that many like close guy friends. So for me, I feel like friends with benefits is tricky, because I wouldn't consider any guy that I would like start hooking up with like a really close friend that I'm like shifting into this dynamic with. I think there was like one time where I thought I was close with someone and we tried to go in that direction, but the like sexual part was like not compatible at all, and ultimately a lot of other things happened and like the friendship just didn't work out either. Realizing like, oh, I don't even really like you that much as a person anyway. Okay, see ya. So yeah, I think, you know, especially when you're younger, like you think you're friends with benefits with someone, but you actually aren't even that close as friends, and you don't realize that until you've maybe hooked up with them, and the way that they treat you shows that maybe your friendship wasn't that important to them or to you even. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say like normal, but I don't think it's necessarily like you're a good or a bad person thing when you're younger, because I think everyone's just like figuring their own shit out when they're younger. It's like no one necessarily teaches you how to communicate in like a healthy and honest way. So I can understand why these sorts of relationship breakdowns happen. But yeah, I do think it's unfortunate, because I remember when I made a TikTok about this, people saying like, after hooking up with a guy, and this is in a hetero context, like I want to be able to speak in like a gender neutral way, but I think obviously most like dating dynamics, and for me and my experience and perspective, it's going to be kind of like hetero. But then I also think, within a lot of romantic relationship dynamics, there is like someone who is skewing more towards masculine and someone who skews more towards feminine. And that doesn't mean in terms of like gender presentation. It just means in terms of like maybe one side is like more assertive, one party is more like passive. And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just how you can balance the dynamics in a relationship. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like always one person who's more masculine. Maybe you kind of shift and take it in turns as well, regardless of like the gender identity of the two people in a relationship. That is just how I personally see relationships at the moment and the dynamics that can exist. But yeah, agree to disagree if you don't agree. But yeah, basically, when I've spoken about friends with benefits on TikTok, people have replied saying, mostly girls replying saying like, yeah, realizing after you've hooked up with a guy in the context of friends with benefits, that they only ever wanted to hook up with you. They didn't actually care about the friendship. And I'm sure that that's like common as well. I think for me, I would say that that's just how boys are, like it's not like boys will be boys, but I do think that most guys, if not all guys, straight guys, they know. And I think for women too, in a degree, I don't know, it's just like you can decide upon meeting or seeing someone whether or not you have like an affinity towards them. It doesn't necessarily mean like you're sexually attracted to them, but it's just like, are you interested in that person or not? Whether as a friend or as a lover or as a partner or as a business partner, whatever. I think that you have like these subconscious parts of your brain that are making those micro calculations, whether or not you're consciously aware of them or not. And I think for like straight dudes, when they meet girls, even if they have no intention of pursuing a woman that they might be attracted to, they're still deciding whether or not they're attracted to them. And I don't think that is like a good or a bad thing. I think that's just like the way that things are, the way that people are wired. And then how you assess someone's character is like how they do or don't act on those impulses. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people haven't really figured out for themselves like what those impulses mean and whether or not and how they might act or not act upon them. And that's just something that you learn to understand as you get older. I mean, you don't necessarily, but it's what getting older gives you the opportunity to do, to reflect and to develop self-awareness and think, okay, yeah, I am attracted to that person, but it doesn't mean I have to hook up with them. Or like, oh yeah, like I think my friend's really pretty, but I don't have to date them just because I think that. So yeah, I think it's one thing for people to have like impulses and different thoughts and to have these like feelings of connection or instinctual whatever, but it's your awareness of them, your acknowledgement of them, and then deciding how you act upon them. And that's just like an internal process that I think everyone goes through, So I think it's like before going about these sorts of things, being able to ask yourself really honestly, like, am I willing to put this friendship on the line just to get laid? Because you need to be, like, in the case of any relationship, really, it's like either you end up together or you don't, basically, you know, like, so even in the context of friends with benefits, it's like either you stay friends or you don't. And it's not always going to be that easy to stay friends after you've been that intimate with someone. I mean, some people find it really easy. I think because like when I've been in like casual things, there's always some level of disrespect that occurs that just kind of like sends me packing. And I'm like, I can't ever look at you the same because of the way that you've felt it's appropriate to treat me or to speak to me, in spite of the fact that we have been so intimate together. And it's not like because I require this level of commitment, it's because I require like a basic level of respect in all relationships, regardless of whether they're romantic or sexually intimate or not. Even with a stranger, you know, I'm not going to make time for someone who doesn't treat me with the respect that I would put in the effort to treat them with. And then I think the closer and the more intimate and the more time that you spend with someone, the more stringent that requirement is. Because, you know, I just don't feel like I have time to fuck around anymore. As I get older, it's like life is just too short to be allowing like disrespect in your own home, like in your own mental palace, in your own like inner circle. Like, why would I want that? Because there's so many other contexts in which you need to operate, especially in work, where you don't get to choose necessarily like the type of person that you get to work with, but you do get to choose the type of people that you're friends with, that you're intimate with. So I think choosing carefully is really important, because the more trash you allow, the less space there is for anything healthy and like wholesome to enter. It's in the way. So yeah, friends with benefits, I think you need to be able to, before you go into it, it's really important to ask yourself, like, what do you want right now in your life? Do you genuinely just want something casual with someone, or do you have like a romantic crush on your friend and you're trying to get a relationship by agreeing, or trying to like maintain or escalate a romantic relationship with them by agreeing to do friends with benefits and hoping that it will turn into something romantic? And I think that even though there are stories of people going from friends with benefits, from friends to friends with benefits to partners, I don't think that that is I think that that is more of an exception than it is a rule, and there's no reason why you should model your approach on the exception and not maybe the rule, which is like friends with benefits usually doesn't lead to a relationship, and usually it's like doesn't lead to a great outcome for either party. If you like your friend, if you have a friend and you're attracted to them in a romantic way and you want to pursue that, raising it and seeing if they're on the same page as you, if they would be open to changing the definition or the nature of the relationship, is an important step to take just for your own growth and your own development. Because as scary as it can be, because I mean, I personally I haven't been in that situation where I've been like wanted to actually date one of my guy friends and wanted to shift it in that direction. And if I was, I don't think I would go for it. I don't know. I can't imagine myself getting that close to a guy purely as a friend, to a straight guy purely as a friend at this stage in life, to be honest. Like, and us both being single, but that's beside the point. Anyway, I think if you do like your friend in a romantic way, it's worth shooting your shot and just seeing if they feel the same or not, because then you can either pursue it like and be on the same page, rather than this weird like, oh, I'm gonna hook up with them even though I really like them, even though I really want to date them, but they don't want to date me, or like not even allow for us to properly date. I just feel like you want to be on the same page. So at least asking, not expecting, obviously it would be great for them to be on the same page, but not thinking that they owe you like mutual return of that kind of interest. And then really being okay with them maybe saying no, I think. And that's really scary. But I think that if you're able to do that, it will move you forward, regardless of whether it's with them or not, if you know what I mean, because then if it's no from them, then you can, divert your attention to to other people, or be open to other people who are able to match the energy that you are looking for or that you are giving. And if it's yes, then you can redefine and explore from there. But I don't think that either answer has to be defined as like good or bad. It's just like, how are you going to be able to respond? How are you going to be able to like learn and grow from these experiences? You know what I mean? So if you just want something casual, maybe hooking up with your friend is not the best idea, because ideally you want your friendships to be like sexually neutral. Like, you don't want to have sexual tension between you and your friend because you're friends. When you have sexual tension in a dynamic, that becomes like a romantic or a sexual relationship, and you're not like supposed to casually have sex with your friends, if that makes sense. Like whether you're straight or queer or whatever, it's like, that's not the vibe. You can like appreciate your friend's attractiveness, I think, but I don't think you want to be like actively longing for a romantic relationship with any of your friends, regardless of like gender or sexual identity. So if you find yourself in that position, either allow those feelings to pass, which they might, or be honest with them and either see if they're on the same page, or like create a bit of distance so that you're not stoking that fire, and reassess from that. But I guess that's a different topic. But if you want something casual, maybe don't hook up with your friend and just see if you can find a booty call. You know what I mean? Because I think I've just realized that to do friends with benefits, you need to be prepared to go from friends to maybe friends with benefits to maybe no benefits and also no longer friends. A booty call, it's like you can still be friendly with each other, but you don't have this like friendship to ruin if you don't end up like, because I think a booty call is like, you can't be a booty call forever necessarily. I mean, if you want to have like a healthy dating relationship around your booty calls, you don't want to be like forever emotionally entangled with them, because I just think that's kind of unhealthy when you are in an actual relationship to be like thinking about your ex booty call or the potential booty calls you could have. So I think like a booty call is sort of like, it's there for a period of time in your life, and then you both sort of move in your own directions. And maybe you can be friendly like from a distance with them, but there's no reason why you need to be like friends with them. And maybe for some people, like they were able to become friends with someone that was a booty call, or someone they were friends with benefits with, or someone they were dating. But I just think that it's important to know what you want going in. Yeah, and I think all of that is possible, but just based on like the things that I have seen and maybe what I feel like my audience might be going through, it's like that's not necessarily the case, that you're able to be friends after. And I think, for me personally, I feel like you don't need to totally burn bridges, like when a relationship doesn't go the way that you expected it to, because everyone's got their own shit, and you just never know like when you might be able to reconnect with someone in a different way and in a more mutually beneficial way, in a more mature way, after enough time has passed. You know what I mean? And if you're holding on to like grudges and bitterness towards each other, I think it doesn't help you to move forward in any way either. So I think like trying to communicate helps, but sometimes just like giving things distance and backing out, focusing on other things, gives you space to grow individually and see whether your paths can cross again. Not necessarily in a romantic way, but just like, I don't know, I just think it's nice to be able to be civil towards people that played a role in your life, even if it wasn't like, you were in a fully committed relationship, even if you just knew each other, even to people I just like know in passing and have no romantic connection with at all. Like, I think it's nice to be able to be like, oh my God, it's so great to see you doing well, or like wishing you the best. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think like with booty calls, there's no like stakes outside of what you're both there for. And obviously you want to make sure that you're being safe and you're being respected and you're being respectful. But again, it's like you don't want to go into a booty call thinking that it's going to turn into a relationship. If what you really want is a relationship, you need to approach the people that approach you romantically in that way. Because regardless of whether like you want a relationship or not, there's always going to be people that might approach you in a way that is not in line with what you want, and it's up to you to be able to be like yes or no. So sometimes when we're not clear on what we want, or when we don't think we deserve what we want, we will lower the bar just to feel connected or just to get any kind of love or intimacy or appreciation. And I think that as you work on your relationship with yourself and ask yourself and check in with yourself to see what you really want, then you can assess the things that come your way and make more conscious decisions. So for me, like if I don't want to be doing anything casual, I'm not going to entertain anybody that approaches me in a casual way. Like if they're not asking me out on a date, then I'm not that interested. And also, like, what do I consider a date? For some people, it's going to be fancy dinner, getting dressed up. For me, or for someone else, maybe it's just, you know, meeting up, doing a vibe check first, and then seeing where you go from there, and kind of having an idea of what you want, behaving in a way that is like in accordance with that standard or that boundary, and then also being open to like the experiences that you have as a result of that, and assessing whether or not you want to continue in that manner. So maybe you start off thinking you want something casual, so you do respond to like casual requests and pursue them, and maybe it's fun for a bit, and then you realize maybe it's not for you anymore and you want to start being in something serious. So that means that you need to change the way that you're approaching. You can't like expect the person that you've allowed to be in a casual thing with, to treat you in a casual way, to suddenly turn around one day and be like, yeah, I actually do want something serious with you. It could happen, but you're better off like asserting yourself or presenting yourself in a way that is in accordance with what you want. And unfortunately, I think sometimes that means walking away from a person or a situation that you might really care about, but isn't really in line with that. And that doesn't mean you have to like cut them out immediately, but you know, you can have a conversation with them, or you can just kind of slowly divert your energy in towards yourself or towards things that are more important to you. And depending on like, yeah, I don't know, I'm like not very good at confrontations, so I don't think I'm the right person to provide tips and tricks on how to do that. It's something I'm going to try to work on over the next year, I think. Knowing how to have like, it's not that I don't know how to have difficult conversations, it's that I have trouble like telling the difference between what is like something that is actually a reflection of reality and what is something that I've just like made up in my head or that I'm like projecting. But that's a different topic entirely. So yeah, friends with benefits, it's a tricky one. I think it can, I mean, I've heard people say that it works, but you know what? I don't really trust what anyone says anymore, because a lot of people are like trying to convince themselves that they are enjoying something that they don't necessarily enjoy. And then another thing is like what I consider fun and what you consider fun might be completely different. So it actually doesn't matter like whether someone is saying friends with benefits does work, booty call does or doesn't work, because it's up to you to figure out what you want. And that's going to change at different stages of your life. So that's why I feel like I'm just kind of like sharing my perspective. And, you know, I think there's no reason why it has to be a definite yes or no whether things work, because life is always going to be messy regardless. I think we do have a natural desire to want to avoid it being messy, but I mean, I definitely do. But at the same time, it's like if it's not messy, then you're not necessarily, if you don't have any mess to clean up, then you're not learning and you're not growing either. You just want to hope that the mess is like slightly different at different stages in your life and you're not cleaning up the same type of mess over and over and over. So I think that's why it's important to spend a bit of time after some experience, whether it's like positive or negative, to decide whether you want to continue moving forward in that direction, or if you want to sort of like redefine the types of relationships that you get into, the types of people that you want to be around, the types of behavior that you'll allow, and making sure that you like put in the effort to make those changes and stay true to that, rather than expecting other people to be able to meet you where you're at. If you can constantly try to meet yourself where you're at, I think your circumstances naturally change and shift around you as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on friends with benefits. I feel like it wasn't maybe as juicy as it could have been. I think my like perspective on dating culture and dating advice has changed a lot over the last 2 years, because I just don't think that I can say like this is okay, this is not okay, because everybody is different. Everyone's at a different stage in their life, and everyone has different expectations, standards, and limits as well. Some people are actually going to be okay with things that other people are not, and that might change later down the line. I guess like being able to just observe and reflect and consider how these things sort of like manifest or unfold, whether for you or for others, helps us to better understand what we want, what we don't want, and how we can do better. So thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You can send me a message on the meme page at friend.crush on Instagram and let me know your thoughts and feedback. And you can follow me on Instagram at Amber Killer, TikTok, SoundCloud, and Spotify for music and mixes. And I'm hoping to get YouTubey, vloggy, vibey videos up soon too. So yeah, hope everyone's doing well. Sending you my love. Make sure to tell your friends and family that you love them. Drink lots of water. Journal, meditate, all those things that we need to do to maintain a sense of mental stability in these trying times. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.